Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show. It is your Thursday afternoon edition. Happy Thursday. A good day out there today. Certainly some of the comments that were made by the president and just market euphoria, at least for the cryptocurrency segment, made it for a good day for me. So we will start with the big news of the day, which may not impact many of you, but some of you certainly are feeling the love here. That is the latest executive order signed by President Trump, which was signed today. I did go through and read the executive order, or at least the paraphrase piece that the White House released. If you would like to see it, I will share it in the chat here, just so you guys can have it for those of you who are interested. And the reason it's so important is there has been this thing called Operation Choke Point 2.0 out for a while. And Operation Choke Point 2.0 is a title that was given. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a guy I follow on X. But basically, banks were not allowed to do anything with cryptocurrency and digital assets. And the main reason was, remember, Bitcoin fundamentally represents a threat to the banking system. If you read the white paper by Satoshi Nakamoto, the white paper was essentially saying Bitcoin's there because the banks are centralized, they control your money, and they can censor your transactions. So, Operation Choke Point 2.0 was this implied thing that many people believe that was President Biden was pushing this through, was that banks were not allowed to do anything with cryptocurrencies, nothing with digital assets, and if they did, they could lose their bank charters or get issues with the Fed. Well, I will share this thing. Here it is. Here's the fact sheet for it. Let me pop this in a chat for you guys, so if those of you who do care can check this out. This is from the White House, and it basically tells you what that executive order is all about. This executive order is focused at debanking, the ability for financial service industries to give preferential treatment to certain clients, certain individuals, certain political parties, maybe in race or ethnicities or religions, could potentially find prejudice in the banking system. Seems kind of ridiculous in this day and age that would be the case. However, it may exist. So President Trump signed it in, and I got this question today from Todd. He says, with today's executive order allowing 401ks to include alternative assets, crypto, real estate, etc., I have to imagine this would be a plus for crypto. With a lot of crypto investors being under 35 years old, those works have many years to benefit from the long-term price appreciation, are willing to invest for the future. Absolutely. Absolutely. To me, this is absolutely huge. There are a lot of things that are not open up to you and I. Well, I'm not going to say you and I in general, but if you're an accredited investor, if you're over a certain amount of capital, you can buy into specific products and services. For example, you guys know Corey Lane, who I've had on the show here many times. He's of Trader's Army. You know, Corey Lane runs a hedge fund. Even if you wanted to invest in his hedge fund, you may not be able to because you have to be what's called an accredited investor. In essence, that's a form of discrimination because it's saying, well, you have to have enough money to do this. So a lot of these investment vehicles, right, these financial products are reserved for those that are financially wealthy. And I actually agree with Trump on this, and I think it is probably the right thing to do. Why should you have to be an accredited investor to invest your money in something? Ultimately, it boils down to you and I making the right choices for ourselves with research and analysis and saying, you know what, if I want to invest in that hedge fund or if I want to invest this in Bitcoin or whatever, that's my choice. I should be allowed to make those choices. So this is really, I think about the impact of this, huge. What Big Ed points out here is it's not just the 401ks, right? This is banking in general. So if you ever feel like you've been discriminated in the banking system where maybe they were censoring your transactions because of something, right? Could be, again, religion, ethnicity, whatever. You can report that and there could be fines put in place. And I'm pretty sure we're going to start to see a lot of other situations like this or more lawsuits come up. For me personally, I'm not worried about buying into hedge funds and things like that. I don't like hedge funds typically. It's not my thing. I'd rather trade my own money. But when we look at the impact of 401ks no longer being limited to this very specific group of investments that your advisor or fund manager puts you in, now all of a sudden you could put real estate in your 401k. You can put crypto in your 401k. You could put a wide variety of different products and services which are considered alternative investments. Remember, we had Justin Krebs on, well, maybe it was last year, talking about, how he feels his clients should have exposure to alternative investments, not just as a hedge, but also to capitalize on market growth in very specific segments. So I don't know how this is all going to shake out, meaning what is the exact steps that you can do to, add these components to your 401k. But at least with the executive order, that ball is now rolling aggressively, meaning those of you who choose to should be able to, within the next few months, once they hammer it all out, be able to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever you want in your 401ks. Now, this is a double-edged sword. Years ago, with Online Trade Academy, I was actually talking to the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer, and I was like, look, we're a trading company. We're a trading company. Why can't we self-direct our 401ks? And he said, you can, but we have to have sign off, because in a normal 401k, remember, what do they put you in? What are your investment choices? Mutual funds, right? Mutual funds with loads and fees and all that kind of other stuff, but they're built to go up over time. So theoretically, from a statistical probability perspective, your company is not really putting you in danger over the long haul. Now, you're asking, Merlin, well, what do you mean by that? In the long haul, markets are going to go up. It's math, right? We know that the weak stocks get replaced in the indexes, they're replaced with the strong stocks, and therefore over time indexes will rise. Okay, so we know that they're going to go up over time. Now, if I was to allow, and let's use Trading Academy as an example, if they were to allow me to manage my own money, and let's say I bought QID, which is a double short NASDAQ, and I've been holding that for the last year, I'm losing a ton of money, and the finance departments are concerned that they may be on the hook for, risk management because you lost that money and you were doing your own investments. This bill will most likely make, or this executive order will most likely make it much more accessible for your 401ks through your employer to say, no, I want to buy QID. I want to go double short. Remember, that's on you. Personally, I don't think that you should be shorting in your 401k plans, period, right? Shorting outside of it is fine, but 401ks or IRAs are designed to be that long-term capital appreciation, saving you for retirement. So why take those big risks in shorting? Because shorting can be a dangerous proposition. Now, back to the topic at hand, which is the impact for our markets. Well, look, I don't think that this really does anything for equities or anything like that. Where it does have a huge advantage is cryptocurrency. And you saw Bitcoin today. Interesting, we had a nice rally today. Maybe this will be the catalyst, right, that we get to push us to that 250,000 mark that I was hoping for. I say hoping, that's such a bad word, that I was optimistic for. How about that? Or forecasting. So here is the intraday. Let's go and break this down, let's say 5 minutes, so we can see what happened intraday. It was really cruising along. We ended up real strong. We had a nice pop early this morning. So it's been on a really nice uptrend for the past, 24 hours. We'll see if that continues into days, weeks, or even months. But so far, looking fairly decent. Now, Steve says most 401ks, you can only adjust so many times per quarter or year. This is defined by the provider. Yep, they do. Absolutely. And the challenge there is timing, right? Because they don't want active traders over and over. Now, if you self-direct, so going back to the Trading Academy one, we actually got it set up where you could self-direct and do your own trades. In that situation, you could make as many trades as you want, but you had to pay like an annual fee to self-direct. I think it was like $100. So big deal for $100. But then I could make as many trades as I want. So under a traditional 401k plan, yeah, you can only make a couple of adjustments per year. They don't like active trading, etc. But this, I think, is monstrous news because as Todd pointed out, yeah, a lot of people, a lot of the younger generation would like to have Bitcoin in their portfolios. And now this opens the door for them to do that through their 401k provider with their work. Now, hopefully there'll be education for these people, right? It'll be education through their employer to let them know what they can or cannot buy. Well, let's be honest. Can anybody here remember the last time that your 401k provider came to your work and explain to you all in detail all of the investment choices that you could buy, transfer, whatever, in your 401k? Anybody here remember that? When's the last time your provider came in and gave you that full rundown? It's now going to be up to them to come to you. Yeah, crickets, never. It's now going to be up to them to notify these employees that, hey, just want to let you know, now you can do this. So while I am in Todd's camp of excitement and euphoria going, hell yeah, let's do this. You can now put Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever you want in your 401k. I think the reality is most people won't know and they won't take advantage of it, right? Because I could tell you, my ex, she doesn't know what she's invested in at her work. She wouldn't know what's in her 401k whatsoever, let alone have the ability to go to the HR department, find out where she needs to go to sign in to look at her 401k, and then figure out how to buy and sell Bitcoin in there. So I think what really explain 401ks, they do that. Yeah, they usually do. Usually what happens is when you enroll, like the company that I was at, Trading Academy, they had, I think once every year, maybe the person would come in, and it was mainly just, here's your choices. That was it. They didn't ever talk about self-directing. They just showed you the simple portfolio and a little booklet of all the different choices you had. I think that to make this really fly, to make this rock, it's going to have to come down to education. It's going to have to come down to you and other individuals going to your employer and saying, hey, you know what? I know I can now put Bitcoin in my 401k or gold or whatever I want. I'd like to do that. Remember, these 401k providers are generally putting you in investments that they have pre-selected and they have pre-chosen. Typically, those are not the best investment vehicles. They're designed to make that firm money. So there'll probably be fees in there, and for the most cases, you could probably buy SPY and save yourself a lot of money over the mutual fund fees for the comparable product. So, I got a whole bunch of comments coming through here. Before this executive order, could you buy IBIT in your 401k? If it was self-directed, yes. If it's self-directed. Through a traditional plan, no. Absolutely not. No 401k plans would allow you to buy individual equity. Well, at least I can't say that. Most 401k plans won't allow you to buy individual equities. You have to buy funds. And again, that's because they make all the fees. Now what this is saying, this executive order is going to say, you can't limit, they're discriminating, right? They're discriminating the investment choices to you. They're limiting what you can and cannot do. So this executive order should make it basically self-directed 401ks now, should you choose. Now, I would imagine the 401k providers, let's say I come to your work, I'm going to do things exactly the same way as I've done before. Here is the things you can choose from. I'm going to try to make it easy for you and your coworkers to figure out, I've got 11 different mutual funds to choose from. U.S. growth, U.S. small cap, we maybe have a commodities ETF, spread it around a little bit, and that's it. Because realistically, I don't want you to be buying individual securities. I make more money when you buy the funds that I recommend. So, let's see, that was a good one. I was a 401k director inside my own business. We had 20 choices. However, they were all very low cost. Good. Some are not low cost. And I think one thing I really liked about our chief financial officer at Trading Academy is he went through and he shopped around for different custodians, and he got one that was like very, very low fees, which I'm definitely a fan of, right? Make sure you got the lowest fees possible. There's no reason to pay a ton of money. Honestly, there really shouldn't be even a fund manager, honestly. The way a 401k should work is your employer should have an omnibus account set up at a Charles Schwab or Fidelity or whatever. And when you deposit money, it gets deposited into an account that has your name on it, and you can buy and sell whatever you want through that brokerage firm. There's no reason, I believe, to have a fund manager or an account representatives for each company. You should just connect directly to an exchange or a broker and plug in that way. But there's always middlemen. Steve's very well put, and I think I said this easier. He says, if everything goes self-directed, there will also be a lot of broke people in retirement. Most people are not made to trade stocks. Totally agree, which is why when I started this, Steve, I was talking about how, our finance department, our CFO was very nervous about people self-directing. Because you're right, people have no business. Well, no, that's not true. Most people don't have any business trying to time the markets without education, right? And they're out there using picks from some other expert or some other service. The 401k by itself is a failed experiment. Remember, we went from pensions, which were your company putting money in, investing it, and then when you retired, they paid you all the way through the time you died. No matter what, here's your guaranteed rate. But that was too much of a financial burden. A lot of companies mismanaged those funds, got in the wrong investments, and couldn't handle the payments all the way through death. Not retirement, but just all the way through retirement to death. Yeah, if you can get a pension, man, you're golden, as Oliver says. Absolutely. So what happened is someone said, hey, why don't we offer your employees 401ks? And that put the onus of responsibility on the employee, not the company. So it was a shift of responsibility from the company to the employee. And the reality is that's underperformed pensions significantly. Now, you can look at the test. They called it a failed experiment. Pensions were good until they stole the pension funds. Right. A mismanaged pension fund can certainly be bad. And that's what happened is they didn't have, not only was pensions stolen, but they mismanaged them, etc. So now the consumer, you and I, are on the hook for managing our 401ks. The best thing to do in a 401k is just keep adding to it over time. And when you retire, right? Trying to time the markets in those is dangerous. But you're right, Steve. I think a lot of people are going to have a lot less when they retire. And not to sound like a condescending jerk, but if you are self-directing your 401k and you're shorting and you're putting all this weird stuff that you've heard about or you want to invest in, you better get education on it, right? Yeah, you better understand how to time the markets, how to put in stop losses. All that stuff should be in there before you start going to town on your long-term account. Because I agree with you. It certainly is a dangerous thing to have more of the masses managing their own money. All right, let me go back up here just a sec. Didn't have NVIDIA on my 401k, I don't think. Have to check. They will soon, Oliver. They will soon. I believe you need to be more educated on what you invest in. Exactly, Chio. I totally agree. John G says the custodian HR decides what you can and can't trade in each account. Yep. But now with this executive order, I think that removes that barrier. Basically, this 401k, it's going to remove the ability for your HR department to decide what you can and can't trade. That's exactly what this bill is against. It's debanking. It's basically removing not racism is not the right word, but the discrimination, if you will, the inability for me as an employee to buy and sell what I want. It's my money. Don't tell me what I can and can't do. That's what this thing was really defined to establish. So I'm excited for it for me personally and for my friends who are astute and understand risks and reward. I am scared for the average American. I think this is actually a bad idea for the average American. But again, to be fair, just think of all your family and friends. How many of your family and friends really know what's in their 401k or are active with it at all? I would argue, this is just a number I'm pulling out of the air, I would probably say that 90% of Americans have no idea what they're invested in. They've clicked a couple of boxes when they first open up their 401k, and now they're just putting in money every month or whatever it is, and they'll worry about it later. I think that's the vast majority. Now, this may create more people that have an interest in adding things to their portfolio like Bitcoin or maybe some other derivative alternative market, but I don't think it's going to have that huge of an impact. I do think you're going to get a lot of younger people saying, hey, I want to add Bitcoin to my 401k. I think the older generation is like, whatever, I don't care, I'm not worried about it, all right? All right, what did I miss? What did I miss back here? The real reason companies move from defined benefit to defined contribution plan is to allow employees to pass on longevity risk and market risk to employees. Correct, meaning that the business didn't want to take on that risk of forever. I think when these retirement rules were established, right? 65 and a half. The expectation was you were going to live to like 72. So it's 7 years of payment. Okay, fine. 401k, a pension plan would have been fine for that. But now people live in 80, 90, 100 years. That'll bankrupt a pension plan and put it underwater real quick. So, it's good and bad at the same time. I know a lot of government jobs have pensions, which is fantastic. Good for you guys. Lucky you. Most people are going to be stuck with a 401k plan. So just understand what you're in. What else we got here? A bill, the Trust Act, has been introduced to prevent members of Congress from trading stocks. And no, I don't think it will go anywhere, Big Eb. It won't go anywhere. You're basically asking the criminals who run the prison to say a bill is introduced that will limit your access to food and courtyard outside activities. They're going to be like, no, I want courtyard activities and I want food. They're not going to vote on that. You might get one or two that vote on it, vote for it to ban all trading whatsoever by Congress, but there's no way that will pass. No way. All right. This is grab to buy Bitcoin. Yep. I think that this now overall what it does is it opens up the door to cryptocurrency even more, which is something, if you've been involved in my crypto programs for the past few years, what it does, it's more adoption. And again, when you have something that has a finite number like Bitcoin, more adoption means prices are going up. So yes, I'm more bullish than ever on Bitcoin. John says 59 and a half to take out 401k money without paying early withdrawal penalty. Is it 59 and a half? I don't even know anymore. So what equities are up today because of this executive order? I don't know if I would say any equities in particular are up because of this executive order. I think when we saw it signed, most eyes turned to cryptocurrency, because if you're self-directed, you could probably go and buy whatever you wanted for your 401k. Now it opens up crypto, the physical underlier. Look at Hood. Margaret's always just loving the Harry Hood. The Harry Hood's a song by Fish. Wow, what a great chart. Jeez Louise. It's just insane to think it was $110. This thing was at $4. We were trashing on the show like, it's either going to get bought out or it's going to go to zero. Well, it didn't get bought out, but man, unbelievable turnaround. Congrats, Margaret. That is absolutely fantastic. Man. FB says, some brokers are custodians for your 401k. You can roll over the funds. Do you have any recommendations for active traders to use trading more flexibility? No, I moved my 401ks, from previous employers. I moved my 401ks to E-Trade. It was just easy at the time. You can roll them over to E-Trade, Schwab. It's actually a very simple application to fill out. A couple clicks online, you can do it in probably under 10 minutes to move them over. I would look and check the brokerage firms and see which one has what you want, right? Obviously, most of them have similar products, but there might be different fee structures, different services, and find a broker that works for you. E-Trade's fine. I actually like Charles Schwab. It's fine. TradeStation, yeah. TradeStation's fine. They stopped charging that monthly fee, which is great. But yeah, there's a bunch of great platforms out there. All right, we went long on that one. Let's go back to, obviously that's very good. Let's go look at the crypto thing first, because that was the big benefactor here. I think the big benefactor from the crypto stuff. Here looking at, let's get rid of the Forex market, get rid of my softs and my futures, and there's crypto. You had Chainlink up 10% today. A lot of these were doing very well. SWI was up 7.5%. SWI is definitely one of the ones I'm very bullish on long term. You scroll down here a little bit, though, and you can see, thank goodness, Polkadot doing something, but still looks dead. And then Bitcoin up 2.04%, right? It's nice when these other ones are up, 6, 7, 8%, but still watching Bitcoin truck higher. That's really good. I actually thought, as I mentioned on the show the other day, I think we're going to start to see it drift lower and lower and lower and maybe get down to that 109 level, which we had mapped out. But it doesn't feel like it's going to do that. I think this news may give it that second chance at an all-time high, and then we're off to the races. The tailwinds for crypto right now are just so compelling. They really are. You've got, like I said, the Genius Act, which now allows you to issue stable coins, which brings in more adoption for cryptocurrencies. You have pretty soon your banks will all be issuing stable coins, and they will also allow custody of cryptocurrency. So even the average Joe who knows nothing about crypto, my guess is probably in a year or two, will probably be able to go to their ATM, deposit their paycheck or whatever they deposit, and it'll say, do you want to put this in dollars or stable coins? Or do you want to buy Bitcoin? It'll be a simple transaction like that, and that will bring in a lot more buying and demand. That's going to be great. Good. Yeah, Big Ed says, I agree. It would be crazy to get out of crypto right now. I agree. Margaret was talking about that pattern we had on Bitcoin. Yeah, it's still holding true here. I'm not giving up on it. I may have sounded a little bit meek on it on yesterday's show or the other day, probably because my jaw hurt so damn bad. But you have your bullish flag pattern. It felt like we're going to continue to rally, but you could argue this is a second bullish flag right here. We had a bullish flag after bullish flag. Now we're getting a little bit of a move. Let's see if we can get a nice pop. If this does come to fruition, then probably within the next couple of weeks we should see 130 on Bitcoin. Do it. In that scenario, where would the Bitcoin come from? So in the scenario where you'd have like a Chase or Wells Fargo where you deposit your, at the ATM, they would either have their own exchange and be their own custodian of Bitcoin, or they would link up to one of the other major exchanges like Kraken or Coinbase. Certainly everything would have to be above board and make sure that the regulators are okay with that. But Mick, that's probably where it would come from. And it does change the dynamic of the crypto world a little bit, because I think, as I've mentioned many times here, I have no direct evidence of this, but I believe what's happening is paper Bitcoin are being created. There you go. Mick just said it right there. Took the words out of my mouth. Paper Bitcoin, where, Chase will have, let's say, 1,000 Bitcoin on hand from customer deposits. But if someone comes in and says, hey, I want to buy some Bitcoin, the bank's going to look around and go, yeah, we can give them a piece of this. They're not actually going to go buy anything. They will be just, fractional reserve lending. And I think that's going to be crazy. When will NYSE or NASDAQ trade crypto? I'm not sure if they will. It's a totally different mechanic. The shares are very different than trading crypto. I think the first step that you're going to need to see here, Margaret, is the bigger question for me would be, when does NYSE and NASDAQ go to blockchain? So I'm not worried about them trading crypto yet, but once they go to a blockchain, I'm hoping you guys can see how significant that is. You guys tell me in chat. Once we get NYSE and NASDAQ go to a blockchain, meaning it's now the new record-keeping system, why do you think that would be so epic for crypto? You guys let me know while I read some of these questions. Mick says, IOU, that's not a good idea. I'm with you, Mick, 100%. I don't make the rules. I'm suspect because if you look at our traditional system today, what happens is your dollars are deposited and then they get lent out right away. I don't think that's going to be any different with crypto. So the supply, the actual physical supply of Bitcoin will still remain under 21 million. But what's really circulating out there could be significantly more than that, which raises the question of what happens if there's a run on the banks. And I think that there's got to be some stress test once these exchanges, once these banks start custodying cryptocurrency. There needs to be some protection there. All right, so here we go. What is the reaction if NYSE and NASDAQ go to a blockchain? What'd you guys say? Margaret says the first move is to extend trading hours. There'd be no reason to not have 24-hour trading. There's no reason. Everything would have a perfect record. Remember, the reason we stopped trading is so they can, markets had a beginning and an end so they could settle all the trades and make sure everything was okay at the end of the day. And then it became more electronic. They could technically do that today. Most of the trading is all electronic, right? You don't see too many open outcry or people like, hey, 25, 20, hand signs and people in pits. You don't see that too much today. So yes, 24-hour trading would be the first thing. But remember, let's take one step back. If NASDAQ goes and has a blockchain and puts everything on a blockchain, your first question should be, which one? Right? Either the NASDAQ is going to create its own blockchain, which I don't think that they're going to do, or they're going to use an existing one. And can you imagine if the NASDAQ says, hey, we're going to use Solana as our blockchain? What do you think is going to happen to the value of Solana tokens? Boom! Because now all of a sudden you've got billions of dollars worth of transactions every single day on that Solana blockchain. Or maybe it's Sui, or maybe it's Aptos. I doubt it would be Ethereum. It's got to be something that's fast and scalable. So our minds need to, or my mind, I'll say mine, my mind needs to be thinking about which protocol, which blockchain is the most likely candidate to handle that sort of systemic adoption on a monumental level. Now, once that happens, you can see how quickly those NASDAQ assets, those securities, they would now be tokens. And those could be moved around so much faster and be able to be swapped anywhere for other assets. So I could literally take my Bitcoin and I could buy some of those tokens. And I could sell those tokens on another exchange. And they could always get a little percentage of the commission check. They could actually write it into the code of their blockchain like an NFT and say anytime these tokens move, there's a transaction cost that comes to us, and they could control that. So there's a huge potential here for adoption and blockchain. Now, once that happens, then maybe down the road, I would think that NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange could get into the active exchanges. But what I think you're going to see is so much cross-bleeding, meaning so many different companies are going to be trading cryptos. Whether it's custodian at like your local bank, like Wells Fargo or Chase, whether it's a stable coin at Microsoft or Amazon or your local bank, or it's outright cryptocurrency at exchanges like Kraken and Gemini and Binance. I think that this whole ecosystem just blows up significantly. So clearly I am biased. Clearly I have opinions, but I'm also being fairly objective. To me, it's a great progression of financial evolution. What did Juan say? How would that work for expiring options? Great question. So my guess is the way that it would work is you could actually build in an expiration on something on a token, right? You could program it in that this token dissolves at a certain point in time, it loses its value and disappears. They could do that, but other than that, I'm not sure. It's a great question, Juan. Let's just start with equities first, right? We'll do equities first. Options may be a different market, although there are options now on cryptocurrency. Yeah, there are options on cryptocurrency. It's just set that contract. It's basically what they would do with smart contracts. So a smart contract is simply a piece of code that exists on the blockchain, right? So that smart contract would say, okay, at this date, If the price is above $400, you're delivering the shares to this one. If not, it expires worthless and keep the premium. So I think it would all be done with smart contracts. Is Coinbase Pro still your favorite? No, it's not. Kraken Pro is my favorite. And main reasons I think Kraken Pro is my favorite is just because the commissions are so much cheaper. So much cheaper. Also, remember, Kraken just bought NinjaTrader. So NinjaTrader was a fairly robust, futures trading platform, which tells you that Kraken is going to very quickly roll out all sorts of different futures products that you can trade on Kraken. So you'll have crypto futures, you'll also have regular futures, but you can also trade the spot market as well. So you're starting to see the integration of traditional investments like futures with alternative investments like crypto. So it's growing. It's getting bigger, guys. I mean, just in the period of time I've been doing this show, since 2020, it's incredible to see how much this has grown and how much the adoption has happened. And I think we are just starting out. Yeah, Margaret, I believe Kraken's from East Coast. I want to say New Jersey, I think. Don't hold me to that one, but it's the U.S. Merlin, what percentage know about Bitcoin and crypto? No idea. I don't know. I mean, I think, when I talk to friends and family, most people know what it is now. At least they've heard of it. They may not know how it works, the mechanics, but I think we'd all agree that Bitcoin's kind of a household name now. Do you guys agree that Bitcoin's a household name? And when I say household name, it's like, we all have heard of it, right? It's hard to escape the Bitcoin name. You may not be proficient and understand all the mechanics, but I think we'd all agree it's kind of a household name now. Let's see. Intel. Yep. Well, let me. There's my screen right there. Big Ab leading the show today. Yeah, household name that few understand. Good way to put it. So let's talk about Intel's troubles. Intel was doing so well for a while, and then just kind of came cratering back down. Here's Intel's chart. It's just right back to mediocrity. It's down near those $18 level. Pretty bad place to be. And one of the main things that happened is President Trump did what he normally likes to do. He tweets out. He got all sorts. I am a believer that the president shouldn't be mingling with this stuff. The president should be dealing with geopolitical issues. Making obviously the country the best that it can be, and trying to get everybody at peace. Calling out companies by name, I don't know. I think that's very unpresidential. But essentially what happened with Intel is the CEO, Trump tweeted out today, or not tweeted out, Truth Social chatted. I don't know what you call that on Truth Social. What do you call it on Truth Social? But basically he said, you got to resign immediately. Your connections with China, it's concerning. We don't like what you're doing. But look, this guy is one of the most heralded individuals in the chip space, right? So this guy knows everybody. And to be an effective CEO in your industry, I would, it's called a truth. There you go. I would assume that if I was to be a CEO of my own company, I would think that I need to be a highly connected individual in my area of expertise. So if I'm running a widget company, I better know everybody in the widget space, whether the competing, my friends, supply. I need to know all the widget manufacturers. And I think this Intel one, because the guy is Chinese, I believe, they're like, well, this is concerning because he's talking to Chinese people. Well, of course he is. You've got to. You got to be. Do you think that should we call out Jensen Huang? Because he's Asian as well. Like, oh yeah, he's got to resign too. I don't hear Trump calling out that at all. So I think this is almost a little bit of a witch hunt. I don't know. I don't know the validity of it. It just sucks if you're an Intel shareholder, right? Because that news is not good for you. That's going to push price down. They're demanding his resignation. It was down 3% today, but I still am in the camp of I like it at $18. I know it's not really going anywhere, but I like it at $18. And it flies into our second discussion here, which is Trump's threat of chip tariffs. I know some of you guys saw this one today. Trump saying he's going to impose a 100% tariff on chips manufactured outside the United States. I'm going to tell you guys right now that if you thought prices were going to go up a little bit for our goods and services, if we get a 100% tariff on all chips coming into the United States, boy, your electronics are about to get a lot more expensive because it's all chips. It's all chips. So I don't think we will get that. I don't believe we will get, because I would buy Intel at 18, but the premium still sucks right now. Yeah, it's not great. If we got 100% tariff, the cost of these chips, that's double. And remember, that cost gets passed on to you and I. Now, obviously, we want to bring more domestic production, and I like the loophole. Bad for cars too, right, Margaret? I love the loophole that Trump put into it today too. He's like, well, we're going to tell you 100%. You're going to get 100% tariff if your chips are made outside America. But if you're an American company and you commit money to our infrastructure, we'll let that slide. We saw what Apple did yesterday. They bent the knee. Up to $600 billion worth of domestic investment in the United States. Of course, that was a very strategic move because now Apple will get around a lot of these tariffs for chips that they need. So I always thought that's kind of funny. But we'll see what this does. If you look at things like SMH, you saw SMH didn't really feel like it was that impacted today. We had a jump up of 1.57% for SMH, which is an ETF for semiconductors. So all in all, semiconductors still look great. All right, I'm going to look at this next question. I'm going to keep on rolling here. Yeah, exactly, Mick. $600 billion for Apple's couch money. Pretty much. Lisa says, what chips that come into the country, the tariff is for anything that has a chip in it? I believe it's raw chips. I didn't dig into it enough to see if it was for like electronics. So if someone sends a cell phone over, does that get 100% tariff because it's got chips in it? What percentage of that phone is made of chips? I don't know all those details. But certainly Taiwan Semiconductor, which sends a ton of chips over here, is like one of the main targets. TSM. And you look at TSM today. Let's bring that up. TSM. 5% move to the upside. 4.86. Yeah, crazy. You would think that this would have a little bit more of an impact on Taiwan Semiconductor. I think that what most people are realizing is this is Trump just blowing smoke. I don't think you'll get 100% tariff. He knows the impact that this could have on the U.S. economy. It would be pretty bad. Mick, are Doritos included? Tariff my Doritos. All right, let's go to this next question from Les. He says, could you take a look at Microsoft? 3 big red candles in a row, not quite 3 black crows. Well, I made a little graphic for you. We'll talk about Microsoft's pattern. I got a bunch of crows on that one. So the 3 black crows is a reversal pattern. And if you look here, the last 3 days, and first off, let me explain the basis of 3 black crows. Essentially what you get, these last 3 candles are, it needs to open in the middle of the previous, or inside the previous day and make a new low. So it's got to have lower lows and lower highs for 3 straight days, which we have. Ideally, these candles would be a little bit bigger, but this is actually a 3 black crows pattern. Now, by itself, it doesn't really mean that much. In the context of where it's been, it does. Where this has the highest level of success is after a significant rally in price. And if you look at this chart pattern right here, just going back into late April, Microsoft was down at 350, and it peaked out on the 31st of July at a high price of 555. So a $200 move up, I would argue that is significant, right? A pretty significant rally to the upside. So you've got those 3 black crows. Now the question is, what do you do from this point? When you see this pattern, typically what it means is you're going to see more downside movement. It is an indication of reversal of the overall trend. So I think some people might call this not 3 black crows because you had the big gap up here on the 31st, and that kind of skews things. But it is something to keep an eye on. And so for Les, you might be looking at this one. It almost filled the gap completely. It's got a little bit of way to go to fill that gap completely. But typically what happens is you'll get a little bit of a bounce up, and then once it starts its next leg down, that's when you're shorting. And then we could start looking at selling into supply zones on something like Microsoft. But it would not be good for the markets if Microsoft started at 3 black crows and all of a sudden started selling off and going lower and lower and lower. Would not be a good thing. It would be bad. Okay. And I think that was all I had from the big stuff. Did I have any trades made today? Did I make any trades today? No, I got some wildness going on in my positions. So I have the, as we know, I have the MSTR. So I have the 400 strikes expiring tomorrow. I almost bottomed back today. We'll see what happens tomorrow. But right now it's at 402. So if it closed like this tomorrow, those shares will probably be taken away. I need to decide whether I want to buy that contract back. But it was up almost $19 today. Pretty impressive move for MicroStrategy. And then the only thing that I have on my plate was Amazon. I got a couple other ones on there, but I don't think Amazon will get down to that 210 mark by tomorrow. All right, let's run through our top 10. Top 8, I don't know why I say 10 all the time. Crude oil, continuing to slide. Look, really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days in a row of just downside movement for crude oil. If you go from peak right on July 31st to our lowest point here, which was yesterday, you're down almost 10% in 5 trading sessions for crude oil. So not a good move. Again, I am looking at it to get a little bit deeper into this zone here, which is between 63.41 and 62. I may actually look at, once it gets into that zone, it's selling some puts on USO, because I do think you'll see some move back up here. But right now, not looking so good for crude oil. Russell was down 0.33%, but technically, I don't see anything worth talking about here on that picture. If you look at the dollar index, you're almost unchanged on the day, just slightly down 0.09%. But again, I've got that trend line drawn in. We put that in there yesterday. That is growing ever more important to bounce off that trend line if you're bullish on that dollar index. Your S&P, still negative. Had a wild range, big swings today. It was only down 0.07%, but the range was way more than the last 2 trading sessions. Again, big indecision. Not a lot of people with clarity as to where we're going to be going from here. Lots of chop. Not even on the podium, NASDAQ was up 0.31%, and we could scroll down here to the bottom and see why. Apple, again, with 3% move to the upside, and 5 out of our 7 Mag 7s were up. So that's why you saw NASDAQ up. And moving up even higher, the 10-year yield jumped 0.38% today, so it's been kind of 3 days in a row of nice gains for that 10-year yield, bouncing off that 4.187 mark that we have there. Gold was your second place finisher, up 0.59. Zoom out just a little bit so you can see we are toying again with all-time highs. We have a little bit of ways to go to get there, but today was an important number because we broke through the high from June 16th. Now the all-time high is out there at that blue line. Oops. No, that was a forecast line. That blue line shouldn't be there. Let's move that and put the all-time high on here so we can have it as a reference. Your all-time high is 35.09 for gold futures. And today we hit an intraday high of 34.83. So pretty close. So 26 points away from an all-time high on gold. Love that. And then, of course, Bitcoin. And we know why Bitcoin did what it did. Looked pretty good today, and we'll see if that momentum continues. Again, I don't see anything that can really knock Bitcoin down, barring some kind of black swan event, or I think what we'll see probably later is a widespread understanding that there's paper Bitcoin out there, which is why I always recommend if you have Bitcoin on any of these exchanges, just take it off. Move it to a paper wallet, a hardware wallet, put it in self-custody. Granted, your half of Bitcoin is not going to be that big of a deal, but every little bit counts. And the more that you keep on those exchanges, the more they can lend out, the more they can rehypothecate those funds and inflate the price of Bitcoin, or inflate the supply of Bitcoin. I did, Lisa. I didn't get a chance to read through it. Unfortunately, I didn't get that today. I was much more focused today. I got my much clearer head today. So today was a good day. We had a good day today. I'm looking forward to a great day tomorrow as well, so I can roar into this weekend with a fantastic, optimistic weekend of opportunity and meeting some new people. So it should be a good time. What else I got here? Is there a fee to take your Bitcoin off the exchange? Yes. It's only a couple of dollars. Actually, I think it really depends on how much Bitcoin you're trying to move. For example, I can show you here if you want real quick. Let's just go and show you Coinbase. So I don't have much Bitcoin on here. I take most of mine off. But if you look at my portfolio and look down here, I keep very little crypto on this exchange. Very little. So you notice here Bitcoin, right? There's $22 worth of Bitcoin because I've moved everything off. But let me just show you. You here click send. I'll go through, these are different addresses. So this is one of my Ledger addresses. I'll go to my Ledger. I'll send it. It would cost me 38 cents to transfer it, right? So not much. Not much at all. But yeah, if you have it on there, again, be careful when you do send stuff. So I don't want to cause everybody here to rush out there and start pulling all their crypto off exchanges. Make sure you know what you're doing, right? Make sure you have a device like a Ledger or Trezor or Tangent or something like that. You know how to use it, and start small. Send just a little bit, just so you make sure you did it right. And once you do, then send the rest over. But make sure you also protect your private keys and seed phrases and all this stuff. All right. What are we talking about here? I got some call. Leaps is what I was thinking. Oh, TTD. Let's bring up TTD. The trade desk. Oh, back on track. It was getting punished for a while. Jeez Louise. We were down at $43. Now it's 100% rate of return since April lows. Great. Looks good. I mean, that's a beautiful trend. It almost feels like it's automated just because it's been so consistently making higher highs and higher lows. It's almost like a digital line. So that looks pretty darn good. AH. AH? I don't even know what AH is. It's thinly traded. Yeah, I don't know if I would touch this one, Big Ed. This is too thinly traded for me. I mean, the trend looks amazing. Oh, I'm sorry. After hours. Thank you. I'm over here going, AH, that stock looks kind of shady. I wouldn't touch that thing. Oh, wow. Well, there goes that trend. Goodness. Let's see what that low point is right here. See if it lines up with anything on our chart on TTD. Wow. Pretty much closing that gap. Crazy. Man, I'm going to have to take a peek at that one tomorrow. Yeah, I didn't see that it dropped after hours. Sorry, Big Kev. When I saw AH and people typing in ticker symbols, I just thought... I was like, all-time highs or AH? All right, cool. Well, interestingly enough, that AH chart looked good. It just, you can tell right away it's thinly traded by the way the candles are. I wouldn't touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. But anyway, thank you for enlightening me with some humor today. That was good. TTD. All right, let me go to your economic calendar and earnings. I'll wrap this up, and then we can get out of here. We did have that MPC bank rate votes and official bank rate for the UK. They did drop 25 basis points as expected, and it did have a pretty nice pop today. It was a pretty strong move to the upside for the British pound. For tomorrow, Friday, you can see we've only got one thing happening for the U.S. That's just another Fed member speaking, so no big deal. You do have, if you're trading the Canadian dollar, the unemployment rate and unemployment change. And finally, moving into your August 8th Friday update for earnings, we have a whole lot of nada. Lamar Advertising on that list, and Rakuten, but yeah, nobody cares. Nobody's. Toby says TTD missed by 1 cent. Lately, again, Tofi, it doesn't matter what the earnings are, right? It's all the forecast. It's all what they say about the market and supply and tariffs and imports and exports. I mean, that's really what hits the bottom line. So see how many times TTD talked about AI in their press conference. All right, that's going to do it for me, everybody. Hope you enjoyed today. Margaret, good news for you. Good news for you. Guess who's going to be on the show on Tuesday? That's right, Scott McCormick. We'll have Scott on the program Tuesday. I'm hoping to get more instructors on. As soon as I can lift this cloud off my head, I will try to get more of the instructors on here and share some insights and what's going on in the market. So yeah, Scott, talked to him today. I'm going to try to also bring Justin Krebs on because I had questions about trust. I'm trying to bring I met a trust expert up at the conference in Las Vegas, and they haven't returned my messages, but I'd like to bring him on too to talk about estate trusts, where you could obviously have a will or something like that, but the benefits of a trust are significant, and it may be something that some of you are interested in. I'm interested in it because I want to put all my assets in a trust, so if I ever do get married, I don't have to worry. Ba-dum-dum. All right, that's going to do it for me, everybody. Hope you guys have a fantastic remainder of your day. If you have something you want to discuss, again, I appreciate the comments and questions from Les and Todd. Thank you for those questions. If you have something you want me to discuss on tomorrow's show, email me, tradermerlin@gmail.com, and I'll be happy to get it. Jordan doesn't like being on camera. So he likes to remain in the shadows. He kind of doesn't like to be on the center stage. So I've respected his wishes, but yeah, he's such a good guy too. All right, bring him all and enjoy. Yep, I will. Thanks, guys. Have a fantastic remainder day, and I will see you all tomorrow. Happy trading.